Everyone, welcome to the channel, and if you like Pokemon content, feel free to subscribe and like this video.
Hi, I'm Malaya. I'm kind of sick right now, so don't mind my voice. Anyways, I'm gonna start doing videos about sometimes videos kind of a vlog-ish, and then others just randomness, outside stuff and maybe how to make stuff. But because I'm really creative, I like making things creative stuff. Yeah. Maybe you'd like to know more about me before you start subscribing and stuff. Well, I'm part native, not Indian, but kind of ish. Native is Mi'kmaq, and that explains darkness of skin. And my hair is ugh, no. Other things, I don't use straighteners, surprisingly. I just use showers and dryers. My hair is just naturally straight. Also, I love videoing and stuff like this, so I decided to start. I also love music. I am so big with music. Music's my thing. Music is in me. I love to sing. Singing is when I sing, it's just amazing. I just love it so much. I guess you could call it scene, but I don't really call myself it totally, because I just don't really name myself like that. I'm just me. I'm me, just me, and it's just really cool. I guess being me is okay. You wouldn't want to step in my shoes, so just don't put up with what I go through. It's not the best life, but it's pretty darn good because I got a roof over my head, and I got clothes, and I got fed well, so I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine. Everything's alright. Also, what I love to do is makeup and stuff. It's actually pretty fun. I also love doing my hair. It's really fun, I find. I love to decorate. I have this lamp right here, you can't really see it, and there's no way I can turn my computer to show you. But yeah, I have a very pretty lamp, and I kind of decorated it. It's just oh, I so badly want to show you, but I can't right now. Other things, my eyes are gray. Yeah, pretty amazing, huh? Gray eyes. Whoops. Also, I love rings and stuff, mostly necklaces and earrings, because I find them really cute. I want to get snake bites, but I don't want to. I love taking photography. I love photos, of scenes and stuff. It's really cool. And also, one last thing, I love listening to music. And that's basically it. I'm actually pretty boring most of the time. My friends call me boring, but we're like buddies. We're oh well. I hate huge prep groups. I hate prep totally. No offense to you guys, but who are preps, but I do not like preps that much. I like staying in small groups in a corner, basically, ish. And I'm not really huge and big and popular, you call them people popular. I'm just basically in small groups, and that's basically it. So I hope you guys are Like, having a great day. Bye.
I got a good video for today, and it looks like we're going to be doing not just one, but two Detective Pikachu boxes. And well, without further ado, let's get into them, I guess. Well, let's get into some of these booster packs here. Oh, let's not forget the little Pikachu. He's pretty cool. Standing on that magnifying glass. Huh. All right, we got a bird. Everybody like those. Looks like we have 3 packs of Detective Pikachu, 4 cartoon pack. And we got 2 Sun and Moon. One's actually Burning Shadows. Cool. Get it very loud. Anyway, let's get into this first pack, 4 pack. I want you guys to comment below if this was a good opening. And well, guys, thank you very much for watching the video. And Pikachu says bye. See you guys later.
Sorry, I was trying to get the dogs to settle. That's why the pause in the... Are you guys done? Okay, sorry. Had a bit of chaos going on while that was happening. Something was happening out on the street and they had to bark about it. Anyway, I think they're settled, so we're good to go. I thought we'd start with a bit of a flashback to Malaya and Daniel, but I wasn't going to play the full Daniel video because it's basically just showing Pokemon cards and going, cool, yeah? You know, that sort of stuff. Thank you so much, Shannon, for the super sticker. Greatly appreciated. Always appreciative of support of my channel. So welcome in, everyone. I appreciate every one of you who's come in to join us here today. I know there's plenty of options in terms of where you could be, who you could be watching. So thank you for coming in here and joining me in here. You'll notice I've finally got around to doing upgrading my StreamYard. So the best part is that I actually have clips lined up. I don't have to just have one video in my waiting box thing. Is it worth $40, $45 a month? Probably. Let's see. Hopefully. Well, I mean, at the very least, I had to do it soon because they only give you 20 hours a month in terms of streaming. So I was going to use that up pretty quickly for this month. So I think it's worthwhile, but it also gives me my choice of background. Gives me the option of having an intro and an outro. And like you can see, it also gives me multiple videos. Now, I'm going to try something that may backfire. I may have to skip back through to find where I'm at here. But I'll come back to that in just a moment. So I had wanted to share, but I didn't put it on the computer. Belinda has put someone has made a lovely new flyer for the gathering for the 2nd of May. And I did want to share that, but I'll make that as a post at some point in time because I forgot to put it through. When I go live of a morning, usually I've only been out of bed for a couple of hours. A lot of my time is spent getting ready for the live, having breakfast, doing all that sort of stuff, taking the dogs outside, convincing them that that's enough, all that sort of morning stuff. So I don't always remember everything. Now, before I jump into where we're at with all the Janie stuff, I wanted to address a comment that was made in one of my recent Janie videos, because I can understand how people become confused. I can understand how people can misinterpret or misunderstand things. And I'm not saying that my interpretation is always the right interpretation. But what I'm going to explain is based on how you do statement analysis. This is, scientific. This is what the professionals, and I'm not a professional, I'm just saying this is what the professionals would tell you. And this is with regards to leakage. Now, you know me, I don't always use the right terminology for things, but one part of leakage is when a person, the wrong word slips out, and that word gives away something that's in their mind that is closer to the truth than what they're saying. But also another form of leakage is when a person is focused on telling you one thing, and because they're focused on that one thing, information slips out that they wouldn't have wanted to tell you, stuff that information they're hiding. So in terms of Daniel, going back to when he spoke about, on one hand, he was saying he handed on his phone, or he handed over his phone to law enforcement. He was giving the, look at me, I'm so good, this is what I did. I handed my phone to law enforcement because that proves that I am just an innocent person doing my best to help with the case. A little ways down the track, he was talking to the media and he was doing his usual thing of trying to throw shade on Malaya. So he said to them that, yeah, law enforcement had seized both his and Malaya's phone, because the intention there was to show that law enforcement had seized Malaya's phone. But of course, he slipped up and said that they'd seized his phone as well. So he gave himself away. It's when they have a departure from their official narrative. So the other day I put out a shorter version. I pulled together clips from 2 of my live streams where I was talking about Janie saying about Brad Wong, what he was saying about the cars, and where I believed that that was some major leakage on Janie's part, and that was a major slip up from her, admitting that, yeah, the car was, that did happen. So I'm going to, no, I'll tell you what was said first, and then I'll replay that bit of audio. So somebody came into my comments section and said, that is a major, major misinterpretation of what Janie is saying. They didn't offer any explanation. They just said that. Now, I chose to ignore it because this person tends to see things very differently from me anyway. So I'm not going to respond when they are pushing their own agenda. Someone else put a comment, please explain. And their comment was, first, you have to recognise 2 of Janie's premises. 1, the kids are alive. 2, Brad Wong is incorrect or lying. Interpret in light of these premises. Well, yes, we understand that Janie has been pushing that the kids are alive. Janie has been pushing that Brad Wong is lying. But I'm going to go back to what I said before in terms of leakage, in terms of screw-ups where you are trying to push a particular part of the narrative. And so you're not thinking about what you are saying. So in terms of what Janie said, yes, it was a departure from what she normally... Oh, he's a little turd. Sorry. It was a departure from what she would normally say because she had a different agenda. So she wasn't thinking about the fact that she was giving away a bit of a truth. So I'm going to replay that bit of audio from when Janie was saying this, and then I'll just explain it a little bit more. And I'm just going to try and add this one.
I can tell you which it is nobody killed those kids.
I think it's good to keep hope, but I think that
I just ran it back a little bit to give you context. So we have a little bit of a discussion before we get on to talking about Brad Wong and the vehicle, to give you some context, and then I'll explain it all after.
I don't want to say a waste of time exactly, but I just don't think that searching the woods anymore is going to find anything good. You know what I'm saying? Like if they're searching the woods, they believe the children are not alive anymore. That's just the facts of it. So why are their pictures not being put out far and wide? If people think that they're alive, then we need to be pushing to get their faces out there. The billboards are a great idea, but do you know what I mean? Like they're bringing, please bring me home in to search the woods, and they were out in the woods today searching again, and you're not searching for 2 live children at that point when you're out in the woods.
Well, here's something you can ask. Somebody get on YouTube or on Brad's Facebook and ask Brad. He said the cars went so far of a distance, this way or that way, right? It changes every time. Ask Bradley how far the car went. If the car only went so far, there's where your area is. They searched, I don't know how many acres of land here to find those kids. So if the car only went up to as far as the railroad tracks and turned, and they went down as far as Lyric Road and turned, and we kept doing, and this car kept doing this here route, how many times? I don't know. If he heard the car coming and going, he should know how far the car went. If he says he could hear it all the way down to the Lyric Road, and Justin heard it up to the railroad tracks. Okay, if that's where far the car went, there's your distance.
Okay, so what Janie is trying to...
do you find it...
Sorry. Okay, what Janie is trying to do here, this is like her saying, they can come and dig up my driveway if they like. What she's trying to do is to establish, so Charmaine brought up about the search, and she's saying, well, you know, now if they're searching, it's not going to bring up anything positive in terms of, if they're searching, they are searching for remains, or they are searching for items like the pull-up or the bag or something like that. Now, Janie's intention here is to say, well, if they want to be certain that the children aren't in the woods, then they need to search this area. And essentially, if they do not find the children in this area, they're not in the woods. So and it's like Daniel with the, I'm 100% certain they won't find anything with the dogs. Janie is essentially trying to say here, well, if they go and they search this area, and we know this is the exact area to search because this is the area inside where Brad heard the vehicle, if they go into this area, they search this area, and they come up empty-handed, that proves the children aren't in the woods. So her intention here is, again, to push her narrative that Malaya or Malaya's people have the children. And her way of pushing it is to say, well, we know this is the distance that the car travelled that Brad heard. So if you search within this distance, is the audio weird? Oh no. I hope not. I'm hearing it fine at my end, but yeah, has anyone else put a 1 in the chat if the audio is fine? put a 2 if there's a problem. If there's a problem, I can't see how I can fix it because everything is normal at my end. Okay, 1 is fine, right? Oh, sorry, I just got. Okay. Maybe if your audio's not quite right, maybe jump out and hop back in, or if you're using headsets, maybe unplug your headset and plug it back in. So this is leakage. Yes, it is a departure from her recognized premises because she's not thinking about what she's saying here. Here, she's trying to prove that the children didn't wander off into the woods by saying, here is the area that you know where to search. If you can't find them in this area, that proves they're not in the woods. But she slipped up because she's basically basing the area where she's telling them to search on Brad Wong's and Justin's testimony of hearing the vehicles. So while she's trying to push her narrative of the children are alive and someone in Malaya's family has them, she's trying to push that by saying, search this area, because she knows they're not in that area. But pushing it, she admits that Brad and Justin's statements are real. Yeah, Coral. That's what it is. Janie's brain just can't multitask. So while she's trying to push for the children are alive, and you can prove this because now we know the area that you can search to prove that they didn't go into the woods. But she's not realised what she's done. Now, I don't know how else I can explain that to simplify it. But to me, it is major leakage. By all means, that person who came back and said, well, you know, basically it's a departure from what Janie normally says, please explain to me why that doesn't make it leakage. Because look, when we look at the context of the entire conversation, when we look at what Janie's intention is here, and I hate saying it that way now that somebody else has their, you know what I mean. I'm not going to go down that track. But we know that the purpose of what Janie is saying here is to push to support her narrative of Malaya's family have the children. And she's pulling out all the stops to convince the audience that Malaya's family must have the children. And to do that, she thinks she has to prove they're not in the woods. And her logic for proving they're not in the woods is, look, you can narrow it down to this area because this is where Brad said he heard the vehicles. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that more because I think I could be just going round and round in circles if I keep trying to explain it. The RCMP, no. The RCMP did not say no evidence of the vehicle. And they said, in terms of camera footage, that they had come up with nothing. But in a more recent statement from the RCMP, and obviously I can't lay my hands on it right now, but I think it was something Rob McCammon was saying, pretty much confirmed that they are treating that as part of the investigation, that it is something that they must have confirmed to some extent. So, yes, the RCMP have thoroughly checked within a radius of Gairloch Road, 1407 Gairloch Road. There is a video that I did a live stream on Gus Lamont, and I showed the press conference when they were saying that they had identified a suspect, and they showed the technology and how they can narrow in with technology to show that in terms of on the ground now, obviously they can't check all the mines in the area where Gus is missing from, but on the ground, on that property where Gus is missing from, they showed the technology that shows that, they're like, well, we've counted 9,087 sheep, I'm just making that number up, and 20,000 kangaroos, and look, we even have an image of a man on a bike. It was really, really detailed, and we've been told that the RCMP did use some major technology. Everything everything they could lay their hands on, they have used in the area. So yes, they are not within a radius, and I think it's probably an 8.5 kilometre radius of that home. And Janie and Daniel have both confirmed that, because when you listen to their statements, they both confirm that the children are not within an immediate radius of 1407. Now, when you look at the way these things come down, yeah, kangaroos are... I like wallabies better than kangaroos. They're the little ones. They're a little bit more friendly. Kangaroos can become aggressive. Anyway, slightly off track, but where was I? Talking about I've lost the flow of what I was saying. Oh, when you're looking at an investigation like this, someone's a little bit behind us and asking what the terrible music is. Yeah, that I should apologise for that music in the background with Malaya. I ran it through the AI background music remover thing several times, and it could not get rid of that. Anyway, when you are looking for missing persons, usually you are going to find them within a 5 kilometre radius if you are looking at something that is criminal. Unfortunately, we have several people connected to these individuals who know how to operate heavy machinery, who have access to heavy machinery. So that complicates things more. But in terms of where Lily and Jack are, I feel confident that they are at the very least within a 10 kilometre radius. Most likely within a 5 kilometre radius, but definitely within a 10 kilometre radius. I think Daniel and his family know that area very, very well. And if you saw any of that video from Tint that was shared on the Foggy Woman's channel, if you saw any of that, some of those mines, some of those well shafts, you could fall into them without knowing they are there. Mayflower, wombats are the best. They're just big, cute, fluffy blobs. And they just go about their business. They don't care what anybody else is doing around them. They just worry about them. They just push on. If something gets in their way, they have... Here's a few brilliant wombat facts for you. Wombats have a bone in the top of their head because they burrow. they have this big bone in the top of their head, but it's like having a steel plate in the top of their head. So they are... Oh, sorry, I was just reading. Summer Breeze, can you email me, please? I can look into that for you. Yeah, so wombats have this big plate, this big solid chunk of bone on the top of their head, which is because they burrow. And the other wonderful thing about wombats is that they poo in cube shape. I think that's probably quite commonly known now, but just two things that make them even cooler. But I just love the way wombats just mosey on about. They don't really pay any attention to anything around them. Where's that? I'll just try and... Thanks, Crazy. That's my email that you can contact me on. Which part, Farm Girl? Yeah, cubes. Wombat poo is in the shape of cubes. It's got something to do with how they are. I don't know. I mean, if you look at wombats, they are just big, solid blobs. That's just the way it is. They are very unique critters. But they are gorgeous. They're so soft and fluffy. Fact for the day. Okay, so I think that was everything that... I hadn't actually put wombat poo on my list of things to discuss. I will just say that. How far away is Barney's River? I think Half Moon could probably tell us that. I think she's done a lot of the mapping and stuff. It may be a little bit further away, but it's all back roads. 45 minutes or so probably not. We can probably rule that out. I would be still thinking within a... little wet bag. I would still be... I don't know why I'm pausing just to allow him to bark. Let's just press play for a moment.
That Malaya made the call to 911 before talking to you or checking the trailer, regardless of the dog situation. I just feel that it would have been the first spot I checked. And that, I mean, that makes a lot of sense too. That was actually one of my first questions, is because when we found out...
Okay. Yeah, Mayflower, I think 45 minutes is too far away. It's... when you look at... there's been some major profiling done over the years of offenders in cases where... yeah, that's Mouse being a little loud mouth. We've got the workman back again over the back fence. So statistically, it is very rare that you are going to find them outside of a 5-kilometre, 10-kilometre radius. You have outliers like Letitia Stouch, where she went to Florida. She put poor little Gannon in a suitcase in the boot of her car and drove to Florida. But that is an outlier. Yeah. Shannon, you're saying what I've been saying. Daniel, for him, the number one thing that drives Daniel, in my opinion, is a need for control. That means that for him, wherever the children were put had to be somewhere that he had control of. So it had to be somewhere nearby. And I also believe, this is why I believe that they are not on public land. Because his need to control would mean that he would need to put them in an area that he believes other people can't access. It does certainly support the down a mine shaft theory that a lot of people have. Based on the language, I believe they are buried next to water, near or next to water. But I do believe it is not on public land. Based on all the statements we've heard, based on Daniel's personality. Actually, yeah, we have a few bugs and spiders. I don't like huntsmen. They're the big ones that are like the size of your palm or bigger. But that is a misunderstanding when it comes to bats. People have seen photos of what are sometimes referred to as fruit bats, but they're actually flying foxes. They're mammals. They're, again, cane toads are disgusting. They're another weird animal that we have in Australia because they're a mammal and they have wings, so they look like bats. Now, I'm going to make a confession here, and for those of you who do live in mainland states, those Australians who are listening, you're just going to laugh at me. But where I grew up in Tassie, we didn't have those flying foxes. Now, when they're flying, the span of their wings can be up to 1 metre. And their wings are bat-shaped, but they're fluffy because they're mammals. When I first moved here, the flying foxes head out at around sunset and they go and they find fruit. That's what they feed on. Fruit and small insects. And the first year that I was here, I was outside. Now, Amira was still an itty-bitty puppy. She was probably about 3 months old at that time, so she was tiny. My chihuahua that I had then, Rex, was also an itty-bitty little chihuahua. And we're out in the backyard, and suddenly I see this mass of what I thought was bats flying in our direction. Because there's a park in the city called Rosalind Park, and it just has this massive population of flying foxes. It's actually got like they call it a nursery there because that's where a lot of them have their babies there as well. I'll do a video at the start of my next live stream to show you flying foxes. They're very unique. They're actually gorgeous. And we've got a massive, massive population. They're not really like a squirrel or a sugar glider. There's something completely different. I'll find a video for you for the next live stream. But picture the body they look like something between just forget the wings for a moment. Think the body is a bit like a cross between an Australian possum, not the weird things you have in America or they have in America. Cross between that and a fox, sort of. And then it's got the bat-like wings. It's just one of our weird Australian animals that I'm not sure how to describe it in terms of other animals, because we do have odd animals here. But yeah, the first time I saw them, they all fly out en masse around sunset, and you just see them coming from Rosalind Park, just heading out into like the greater Bendigo area. And it looks like something out of a Hitchcock movie. And the first time I saw them, I thought they were bats because I didn't know. And I freaked out because I had the dogs outside and I'm thinking 12-week-old Chihuahua and itty bitty Chihuahua. And I'm like, come on, get inside, get inside. And I rushed them inside. And then I did my research and found out that they're mammals and that they eat fruit and that I was just a complete utter moron. So just, a bit of a side note there. And yes, any Australians who are listening, who knew this, you can just laugh at me. Because it is worthy of being laughed at. Yeah, I love koalas. Koalas sleep for 20 hours a day. Anyway, let's get back to this, or we'll never get to the point. So now we're talking about the 911 call. And the question here is, she's asked Janie if she thinks it's strange that Malaya made the 911 call before talking to Janie or checking in the RV, regardless of the dog situation. And she's like, well, that would have been the first place to check. Now, that's something that I have said multiple times. Why this narrative that does not include Janie? And we're going to get Janie's response to this. Shannon, you are lucky. I have encountered so many snakes. I've nearly trodden on a tiger snake before. I've had way, way, way too many. June Costo, do you follow Angus? There's an Australian guy and he puts videos on YouTube. Angus Thornton or something like that. He put a video up the other day of a platypus in the main street in Hobart because there must have been like lots of rain or something, and it's around where the rivulet is, and this platypus is swimming along the side of the road somewhere near the Royal, trying to find how to get back down, or it could have been up in South Hobart, I'm not sure, trying to get back down into the rivulet. Great video, but I can't think of his name right now. In a city, that's always a good place to be because you stay away from the snakes. I haven't seen any since I moved to Victoria, touch wood. Okay. Yeah, if you can't find him, June Costo, email me and I'll send you a link for his channel because you will love it. He's mainly does Tasmanian history and it's absolutely fascinating. But he's also got a Facebook page, and if I could remember his name, I could tell you his Facebook page. But he put this gorgeous video out of this platypus swimming down, swimming along a puddle in the road and then trying to find its way back down to the rivulet. It was very, very cute. Okay, so let's go to Janie's response. I tell you what, the squirrels are well and truly running free today, aren't they? I shouldn't have started on the wombats. Let's hear Janie's response.
Mother-in-law lived 40 feet away. My first thought would be, I'm going to go check my mom's place or whatever. Do you have any thoughts of why they wouldn't come and check with you first to see if the kids were inside with you?
The thing that why they didn't come and check with me is because apparently they thought I was away.
Apparently, they thought I was away. This narrative didn't come up till much later in the situation. this was a narrative that was introduced by Dingbat. And I think the point of the narrative was to actually explain. No, I don't know the story of Trim Flinders. It sounds like you guys have some really cool information. You will have to email me these things because I forget to look it up after the live stream. And yes, quokkas are the cutest. If you have not seen a quokka, they are way too cute. I'm more than happy. Put a 1 in the chat if you want me to maybe do a short live stream at one point in time where I share some of our quirky animals and a few things like that. I'm happy to do that for those of you who are not in Australia. If you've never seen a quokka, you've got to look them up because they are just the most adorable, cutest, hilarious critters on the planet. Yeah, I'll do a little Aussie live stream at one point in time. Way to go. And I can actually probably stream it on my other channel, which is defunct, but it might be a good way of reviving that channel, maybe. But note she says, apparently, quokkas are only in Western Australia, and I believe only on Rottnest Island. Shannon can correct me if I am wrong. But it's my understanding that there are no quokkas on the mainland area of Western Australia, only on Rottnest. If I ever get to Western Australia, you can bet I'm headed to Rottnest Island. And yeah, they are a mammal. So if you head to Rottnest Island to visit with the quokkas, you may even see a baby stick its head out of the pouch. Absolutely, absolutely gorgeous. Janie, apparently they thought I was away. So she's acknowledging here that the story is BS. She's throwing in apparently because she knows that this story wasn't part of the original narrative. It got thrown in later. So basically she's acknowledging Durwood's story and she's taking it on board because it's a convenient way of explaining why they forgot to add Janie's RV into their narrative. Maybe this is why Janie's pushing so hard in terms of her dog barking as well. Because that would also help explain why they didn't check the RV, because, well, Janie's dog would have been in there and the children wouldn't have gone near there because of the barking. But definitely what is going on here is an attempt to take on Durwood's spin on the narrative because it fills a gap in their narrative. Yeah, according to Durwood, here's my timeline.
See, every Friday, as they said, I was going with my brother to town, so they must have thought I was away. That's why they didn't come over and see if I heard the kids or anything, because they didn't expect me to be home.
Okay, Janie's actually painted herself into a corner here because what she has done, and this ties in with what Ernestine is saying here. So one of the first things people were saying when the whole narrative came out, and Janie's like, my brother rang to see if I wanted to go into town, and I said I didn't want to, so I was here. A lot of people came out with, well, that's a heck of a coincidence that if she heads into town with her brother, usually she just happened to be home that day. Janie came back. Yep, and that too. And I'll come back to that in a sec. Janie came back at people and said, well, I don't go every week. But not only that, we have in the documents, we have statements basically which show that he didn't go into town until after 10 o'clock, after the children were missing. Sure, he may have rang Janie at, 8:48 to ask her if she wanted to go into town or if she was going into town with him, and I don't believe that's what the phone call was about. But he did not go into town until later. But Janie has, because of the questions that people have said, well, or not questions, a statement where people have said, how convenient is it that she just happened to not go into town that day? And Janie's response to that was to say, well, I don't go into town every week. And then here she says, Friday, as they said, and I'll come back to that, I was going to town with my brother. She's trying to establish here that essentially they wouldn't have checked with her because they expect her to go to town with her brother. She's said that it's an ongoing thing. So her saying that the reason they wouldn't have checked with her is, I don't like Foster's. I'll stick with Cascade, thanks. Sorry. She's trying to establish here that they didn't check with her because they know that Friday mornings she goes to town with her brother. But then at the same time, she's arguing, well, I don't always go with them. So she's contradicting herself. But the wordage here, Friday, as they said, I was going with my brother to town. So again, she's putting the story on other people. So they must have thought I was away. So she's basically saying that this is the big excuse. They never checked with her because they believed she was away. Given how flimsy the walls of that trailer would be, I call BS on that because you would hear a vehicle come into that driveway. According to Janie, you would hear Tucker bark when that vehicle came into that driveway. So you would know, even if, as Malaya and Daniel claim, they didn't wake up till 20 to 10. You would still know that you were not woken up by a vehicle coming in the driveway. You were not woken up by the dog barking at the vehicle because they would have heard all that. So that is seriously flawed. And she's using this as her explanation. They didn't expect me home. There's so many holes in this part of the narrative. Anyway, we've spoken about this so many times in the past, so let's keep going.
Okay. And I think we've heard Daniel has a Dodge Journey. Do you know what happened to it? I know what happened to it, but do you know what happened to it?
The Dodge Journey is gone. It went for scrap. And yes, it was checked by the investigators and the RCMP. All vehicles in this property were checked by RCMP investigators, and God knows how many searchers have looked in the cars.
Took her a little while to get into her stride there, which is very interesting. It wasn't an easy answer. She had to process her answer. When someone has to process the answer, that means that it's probably not factual. She was trying to figure out how to discuss this whole Dodge Journey question. So you've got all these pauses, and I think that is significant. Now, I need to look these cars up because I'm getting confused. There's a lot of cars that get mentioned that are not models of cars that we have here in Australia. But here's my concern. First of all, she's saying it went for scrap. Now she's saying investigators checked the vehicles and that they checked that by the RCMP. Now, from what I've heard, from what we've been told, that went for scrap pretty damn quickly after the children were reported missing. And she's saying, well, it was checked by the RCMP. What she's referring to is it would have been checked by searchers as far as opening the doors, opening the boot to check that the children weren't in the vehicle. But if that vehicle was long gone by the time they brought the cadaver dogs in, they may not have had the opportunity to run the dogs over that vehicle. And again, I still have questions about a garage fire that occurred about a month after the children went missing. And what vehicles were in that garage fire at the time. Is this vehicle one that the RCMP have been able to track down? Or is this a vehicle that is maybe well and truly gone? It went for scrap. Where did it go for scrap? These are the important questions. When did it go for scrap? Where did it go for scrap? Have the RCMP tracked that vehicle down and put dogs through it? Same with the Rio. Have they tracked that down? It bothers me that Janie and Daniel and those around them are being so evasive when they talk about the vehicles. The Dodge Journey, the one off on the bank, is that the vehicle? Because I think Dodge Journey, I think big vehicles. So the one on the bank where there was another spot near it where there was a big oil leak, is that the one that was the Dodge Journey? Because that one wasn't running at all. So if so, then that's probably a bit of a deflection. I think I had actually questioned why the push on this narrative for the Dodge Journey. Because if that is the one that was parked up on the bank and had all the brush and stuff growing around it, then we know that's got nothing to do with the case. I'm more interested in the vehicle that was parked on Earl's property. Because if that is the Subaru, which seems to get avoided in terms of discussion, why was it parked on Earl's property until the search was called off? And then we have that footage from the media of detectives walking into the house at Gerlock Road, and presto, there's the car. I've got so many questions about these vehicles because none of it seems to connect up. I think the Dodge Journey, I don't know where the discussion of the Dodge Journey so the Dodge Journey was actually on the road. I'll have to look into that more. But I think I'm just questioning the many, many different narratives around the vehicles. Nobody gives a solid answer in terms of the vehicles, which again points towards the story of the vehicle being heard, points towards that as being truthful, being correct. So we could go around in circles trying to figure out these vehicles, but I'm going to push on.
We had a dryer out at the end of the driveway. You want to know how many people looked in that dryer? I could count them on my hands and my toes hundreds of times. Oh, everybody that came in this yard looked in that dryer. Everybody looked in the vehicles. My car was actually searched by a cadaver dog.
Damn, I was saying good stuff too. Gotta learn to mute, not to unmute. I was saying some breeze, sleep well, and I hope that you do catch the replay for the rest. Sorry. It seems to be my biggest thing. I keep forgetting to... I muted it so I could have a drink while I was playing the audio, and I forgot that I'd muted it. What I was trying to say here, but nobody could hear me, is that Janie's just gone full circle here. And this is significant in my opinion. So the question that was brought up was about this Dodge Journey. And she's starting to say, she's saying here, well, all the vehicles were checked. The Dodge Journey, they got rid of it. It went for scrap. And then she goes in this circle of talking about them checking the dryer. And, you know, I could count how many times they checked that. Everybody came and looked in that dryer. But then she circles back to the vehicles. And what stands out to me here is that when she circles back to the vehicles, she comes out with her vehicle was searched by a cadaver dog. Why is that significant? The question was merely, and I've just got to scroll up a bit, we've heard Daniel has a Dodge Journey. Do you know what happened to it? Well, the simple question would have been, the simple answer would have been, it's gone, it went for scrap. But Janie's just given us a full-on essay about what vehicles were searched on the property, finishing with her car was searched by a cadaver dog, which is moved right away from this idea of the Dodge is gone, it's not important. She's gone into defensive mode. So again, something is significant with one of the vehicles that was on that property. Because instead of just coming out with it's gone, she's just gone full on with defensive mode and with over-explaining. So that to me says there is definitely some significance, and maybe it is significance to do with the Dodge. Maybe the vehicle that Brad heard wasn't a Kia Rio. Maybe he mistook it for a Dodge. I know some vehicles look similar. We can make the assumption that Brad knows vehicles really well, and we could be wrong. So, especially when you talk about newer vehicles, because so many newer vehicles look so much alike. If I was driving down the road and I passed 4 or 5 SUVs, I wouldn't be able to tell you which ones I'd passed unless I had paid attention to the badges on the front of them, because they're so much alike. So the Kia Rio, maybe that is slightly wrong. And maybe Brad's confidence over that is actually working to the advantage of Janie and Daniel. I've not heard anything about a vehicle found burnt in the woods. I don't know where that came from. Yeah. I was at the vehicle. The Dodge Journey is the one that was crashed. That was gone before cadaver dogs came in. I'm pretty certain that was gone before the cadaver dogs came in. The one that he crashed. In which case it has nothing to do with the garage fire. If that's the vehicle, then you can bet that RCMP would have got hold of it and put forensics through it. They would have put dogs through it. They probably would have just kept it quiet, and we won't know if the dogs alerted to anything in that vehicle. But it was discovered recently. I haven't heard about that, so I have to look into that later. So definitely Janie's being very, very defensive here about the vehicle.
And as silly as some of those places sound, it makes me feel more confident that they did thoroughly search everything on the property, right? So, I mean, in that way, it's good. Even if it sounds silly to you, it's good that they were thorough in their search, at least there. Roots would like to know if the kids had gone missing before, even for a short amount of time.
I do. Oh, okay. Well, it'd be interesting to know where she gets her information from. Because I think there are some people making use of shenanigans to push a narrative. I'll just leave it at that. Charmaine's got a good point, and it does show when we hear of them. You know, Janie talks about that they even checked inside my washer spinner. So it does show that they thoroughly checked that property. My big issue, though, is I wish they had card teams in Canada. I said this yesterday. It really should have all been shut down immediately on that property. All the extra people should have been gotten off the property. And really, at the end of the day, sorry, I just got sidetracked. Yeah, they should have got all the extra people off the property. They should have got forensics in. They should have basically removed the family members. They should have not allowed anyone other than searchers to go into the woods. And we know that they did eventually get to that point. But we also know that Janie and Daniel apparently were still searching the entire time. So they only stopped them temporarily, if you listen to Janie and Daniel's stories. But anyway, moving on, because we're going to get Janie's answer here, or her response. So this is the question about Jack having wandered off before. Oh my gosh, Ara! I'm absolutely thrilled to see you in here. I haven't seen you for so long. Wow, I've got BTTV and Ara in here. Sorry guys, but Ara is like OG. She's been with me since my channel began. So I'm just so thrilled to see you in here, Ara. I would love to see you doing some more live streams, Ara. You are a natural at this. And honestly, I would just love to see. I'd be there. If you started doing live streams again, Ara, if you started putting out content again, I would be there 100%. And I would be 100% recommending you for my subscribers, my viewers, because I know that the people who watch my content would love. You did one last night and I didn't get notified. Oh my gosh, wow. BTTV, can you please put the link up for Ara's channel for me, pretty please? Definitely worth checking out her channel. She is just, I can't even begin to say how awesome Ara is. She is one of the major inspirations for me in terms of what I do on my channel. She's one of the reasons that my channel exists. So yeah, I just cannot speak highly enough of Ara, and I'm so happy to see you here. Okay, so got a little bit sidetracked, but we're talking about Jack allegedly wandering off. Thank you, Ara. I'm getting a little bit teary here. Ara is one of my favourite people. Sub up to her channel. She's just very smart. She picks up on so many things. Very intuitive. I cannot recommend her more highly. Okay. I know, it's like a family reunion. Sorry guys, just you have to indulge us for a moment because I haven't seen anything of Ara for a while and I've missed her. Like I said, she's one of my OGs. So it's just so good to see you here, to see you, full stop. Let's hear what Janie has to say about Jack.
Well, as the YouTuber said that Jack has gone away before, but that's when she lived in Truro with her grandmother. Apparently, Jack took off from her care before.
Okay, what makes this really interesting? Ninja is the evolution of my channel name. My full channel name used to be Ninja Chihuahua True Crime, but that was such a mouthful that in the early days I got nicknamed Ninchi, and that stuck. So then I just rebranded my channel because it was just easier. So hence the reason you do occasionally see people referring to me as Ninja, because that just goes back to my original channel name. But, you know, it just became so commonplace for me to be called Ninchi that that's where we're at today. Now, this story of Jack allegedly wandering off from Paddy's place. Here's the thing. This story originally came from Daniel. It was one of his narratives that he invented way into the case. This is after, at the beginning, Yeah, Ninja Chihuahua. It was a nod to my other Chihuahua that I used to have, Rex, who he was like a hyperactive flea when he got excited. And from that, I kind of thought, calling my channel the Hyperactive Flea True Crime probably wouldn't be very appealing, so I went with Ninja Chihuahua. It was a nod to Rex. Yeah, he's not around anymore, but my little man, he was full on ninja, and that's where my channel name comes from. So now you know. So we had this story introduced by Daniel that Jack had wandered off before when they were living at Truro. But this was an introduction really late in the piece. And originally, we were told they never wandered off. They were not known to wander off. Now, clearly Janie doesn't know that the story originated with Daniel. Because what she said is, as the YouTuber said. That shows us straight up that the whole story is a pile of BS. Because had the story been truthful, she would know about it. Because she seems to know about everything else with the children. She's one of the people that early on was saying the children are not known to wander. They never go into the woods by themselves, but I went and I checked the woods first. Because you do when you're convinced that they'd never go into the woods. But note too, because she's trying to push this narrative, which she knows is BS, she then says Jack has gone away before. So even in terms of the way she's saying it, the way the sentence is coming out is just not normal. When you refer to a kid who has done a bit of a runner, gotten out into the street and gone for a wander, you don't say they've gone away before. Gone away is inferring they've gone on a holiday or they've gone some really big distance. They've gone away to camp. A child getting out and going for a wander through what's it supposed to be, a wrecking yard or something, and then being found a few kilometres away, that's not a child going away. That's a child getting out and going for a wander. So Janie is confirming here that the story is just a whole bunch of BS. But also all the pauses in it, because she's got to work on making sure she gets this right, because she's trying to remember how the story goes. If this was something that had truly happened, it would have been a topic of discussion at some point in time, meaning she would have more information in her mind to draw on to share this story, and you wouldn't have the pauses. So complete utter BS. And she continues with the BS.
Yeah, but they wouldn't go out to the woods by themselves. I know I asked you guys earlier today, just because the forts were so close, was that something that they did on their own? And I know that you had told me no, they just never did that.
When we used to go for walks, Daniel and I and my other two grandchildren and Jack and Lily, I would have to carry Jack through the woods because he couldn't make it over the brush or the undergrowth or everything. I would end up carrying Jack. So no, they wouldn't go in the woods.
Before tomorrow's live stream, I will rework the video and pull out all the gaps, because I didn't realise how many gaps there are. Although, at the same time, in terms of what Janie's saying, it is important to hear the pauses, because that is thinking time. And when you are telling something that is truthful, you're not going to hear those pauses. Note here the way she lists everyone, Daniel and I and my other 2 children and Jack and Lily. I really don't think there were very many walks through the woods with Jack and Lily. I think maybe there might have been maybe 1 at the most, because she had to add them on at the end. It's not your natural flow of Daniel and I with the 2 grandchildren and Jack and Lily. No, she's got the and my other 2 grandchildren and Jack and Lily. Thank you, Crazy. Congratulations to whoever got the memberships. Awesome. I can never see it at this end, so I just have to say congratulations. So the add-on here suggests to me that it wasn't a regular thing, them taking them through the woods for a walk. Maybe it was just something that occurred when the grandchildren were visiting, and they took Jack and Lily because they probably didn't have a lot of choice. But here, she's twice said, I would have to carry Jack, or I would end up carrying Jack. What I find curious is Janie doesn't look like someone who would cope well with carrying Jack. She's got a limp. She certainly didn't seem to be like super agile when she was heading up through the woods. So how many times exactly did she have to carry Jack? 1 time? I can't see it being a regular thing. I don't know how relevant that is to what's being said here, but I just wanted to point that out. But then we go back to, I'm just trying to stop and, no, I'll press play for now. I'll come back to that.
As I said, when she told me that, the first thing you think of is maybe they went up to their cabins and maybe followed the road, not go through the woods. But
this is a major departure for Janie. So she's got to explain why she went up into the woods, because ever since she came out saying that Malaya said the children are missing, and I said, how long? And she said 20 minutes. And so I went and I put my boots on and I went up and looked in the woods. And we're all like, why did you look in the woods, Janie, when you said they wouldn't go into the woods? And then it was the whole narrative of, I went to check the cabin, the little playhouse thing in the woods. But then we get the narrative of they only went up there with the grandchildren. So again, people were, Janie, why would you go look in the woods when you said they wouldn't go into the woods? So now she's introduced a new part of the narrative to basically answer all the questions that we've had. She refers to them as cabins, but it's that lean-to with all the tree branches on it. And the looks like a pen, like an animal yard or something. They call them so many different things, but I always found it a red flag that her and Daniel refer to them as cabins, because they're the last thing that I would consider as cabins. But there are, exactly, Deborah, there are rundown cabins up in the bush, up into the woods, sorry. And I think that's leakage. I can't help wondering if initially the children were hidden in one of those cabins. And then when Janie and Daniel were out there with the four-wheeler, allegedly searching, they moved them. There is a part of me that thinks that they were moved in those first couple of days. Is that why Daniel got his friends to come around on day 2? Because they had hidden the children in a cabin somewhere and they needed to move them before searchers found them. Yeah, that was the one that always stood out to me when Daniel said he ran up to the kids, to the cabins in the woods. He screwed up big time there. It was major leakage. Yeah, there's significance there. But here, what she's tried to introduce, it's not logical. If I was better organized, I would have an aerial view to show you. But what she's saying here is the first thing she thought of is that they went up, and she stumbles over her words as well here, which also shows me that this is something she's trying to come up with on the spot because she knows the questions everyone's been asking. So she went, maybe they went up in, up through, up to. Which is it, Janie? She's stumbling because she can't think of how to deal with this to explain away the fact that she claimed that she went looking in the woods, even though she's made it really clear that they never wandered or they never went in the woods. These people have continually tried to adapt the narrative, but all they do is make themselves look more guilty. And what she says here, so maybe they went, I'm just going to, paraphrase because I'm not going to go with the up, in, up, through, up to or whatever, but maybe they went to their cabins and followed the road and didn't go through the woods. That's physically impossible. When you look at the aerial photo of the property, those little cabins, as she calls them, are in a barely even a clearing, a little bit up from the bank. And then to get to either the main road down on Gairloch Road or that road that runs up the back of the property from those cabins, either way, they would have to go through the woods. Unless what she's trying to say is, oh, I went and checked in the cabins because I thought maybe they went up there and then they came back down and went down the driveway and then went down to the road. Because that's the only way they could follow the road without going through the woods. Which again begs the question, well, why would you go to the cabins in the first place? So either she's trying to suggest here that they went to that road that runs up behind the property, the only access for which is going through the woods, or she's suggesting that they went up to the cabins and then they doubled back and they went down to the road. And that's why I checked the cabins first. Behind the chicken pens is a slightly different location from the cabins. I will show you that I'll just make myself a note and we'll have a look at the aerial view of the property tomorrow. Because essentially the chicken pens are at the back of the property and that is thick bush. And yes, if you did go directly back from there before you hit the pipeline trail, then you do have to go through a marsh. But in terms of the kids' cabins, as they call them, that's kind of off to the side of the property, kind of, if you picture the driveway and where that car was parked on the bank, that's where they go up. They go up the bank there where that car was to get to the cabins, the playhouses, the whatever you want to call them. So that's off the other side the other side of the property, if you think of it as a square. So to get from there to that road, basically the only way is to go through the woods. But I'll go through that. I'll bring it up tomorrow and we can talk about that at the start of tomorrow's live stream, because I think probably it is useful to understand how all this fits together.
Was up there just after they noticed the kids were missing. He went up the road with the vehicle. I went up through the woods.
Okay, so she's established here that it is the road up the back, the one where the only way to get to it is to go up through the woods, as she's just said. And yet she's already established that they wouldn't go walking through the woods. They'd only ever go as far as their cabins. That bugs me a lot, crazy bug. Crazy buck, sorry, not bug. That bugs me a lot. You've got that little tree house right next to Janie's RV with a ladder coming up from the driveway. And it's like it's invisible. There's never been any mention of that whatsoever. And I question why. Yeah, that one. Never a mention of that. So why? Yeah. She does do a lot of stuttering here with her narrative. A lot. It's not fluent. Daniel was up there just after they noticed the kids were missing. Daniel was up after he did what, Janie? Again, leakage. There was something going on here, and then he was up there on that road. And again, this is another thing that I have so many questions about. Why is it that Daniel and Janie both ended up on that road, allegedly? Because we have this story. Now, we get different versions because also Daniel, while he was driving up that road, he was also driving around Lansdowne, checking culverts and drains and things. So maybe that is just a deflection, saying he was on that road because they don't want people to know exactly where he went with that vehicle before the RCMP arrived. Maybe this is, again, giving an alibi for Daniel. Yeah, I ran into him up on that road. That proves that's where he was, as opposed to heading somewhere up Lansdowne to dispose of more evidence, perhaps. But it is really, really coincidental that we have this focus on that back road. But she's also confirmed here that's where she thinks the children supposedly went. Up through the woods, up a steep hill to that road, which she said they never would do. Play.
And as Daniel mentioned, when the helicopters went up and they have the heat seekers on them, they found, I think it was a beaver and something else. The heat seeker went down on them and found these here animals. I don't know much about it. I like, there's so much going around, like so many hearsayings here. They like, even the people that were out searched these areas where these here where they hit hot spots. So if a helicopter with a heat sensor can pick up animals, they should have been able to pick up the kids.
Okay, what she's referring to is FLIR, FLIR, forward-looking infrared. Basically, it picks up heat signals. And yes, they had helicopters and drones up within a couple of hours of the children being reported, with FLIR technology on board. The helicopters, I believe, also have augmented reality, which is a way of processing. It's an AI way of processing the images that come back through the cameras, so that it basically takes them beyond like just an image from the camera. If you saw the live stream I did about Gus Lamont, and you saw where they showed the image of the guy on the bike, that was augmented reality, because they took what from helicopter height would have been a bit of a what is that kind of image, and augmented it so you could see that it was a guy on a bike. Yeah, that's normally the case. Kids in rural areas usually have freedom to run around outside, and it's normally safer for them. I think there is definitely a lot here that they're not saying in terms of where these children played, where they were allowed to play. There's so many things here that bother me about the narratives that have been created over the disappearance. Jeannie, there aren't any photos from before the children went missing, which is frustrating. It would be very, very interesting. Honestly, I would love at some point in time, Ara, if you are familiar enough with this case, for you to come up on panel and for us to do a panel discussion about this at some time, because your observations are always like so spot on, and I think people would love to hear your observations on things. There's so many things that I think you would pick up on that I've not spoken about, or you would explain. I know you explain things way better than I do. I would love if you would join me sometime on a live stream, because that would be awesome. Yeah, when you look at their statements as opposed to their actions, that tells you so much. And what we're seeing here is a major mismatch between people's statements and their actions. There's so many holes in these narratives. I think on one hand, Malaya was probably smart to go to ground and not speak, because we know that her narrative was contradicting Daniel and Janie's narratives. But honestly, Janie is the gift that keeps giving. She's the one who I think has given us more factual information, but disguised as BS. Yes, you are correct. There's a lot of variables when it comes to FLIR. First of all, Ara. Ara is another content creator. I did have her link for her channel up before. She's brilliant. She's very, very intuitive. She's very, very good at explaining things, way better than me at explaining things. Just huge inspiration to me. She's one of the reasons that I have my channel. Yeah, I've just been and said all that before. I won't go too far into it now because otherwise we'll get sidetracked. The rain was the afternoon, I believe. I think it started raining late afternoon. So Friday morning it wasn't raining from memory. But going back to Fleur, in terms of how it senses what it can senses, first of all, you probably saw a lot of mention in articles that they had their helicopters and the drones out at night time. And the reason for that is that things are cooler at night time because essentially during the day, the sun heats things up enough. So you heard in the audio from the dispatch where there were some concrete swans that got picked up a few times by the Fleur. And that's because they were black and they were concrete and they were absorbing the heat. So that's why a lot of what they do with the searching is nighttime, because basically you do get other heat coming in. So in the warmer months, one of the challenges with using FLIR technology is that you can see the heat in the trees because it's warm. It's much easier to spot someone using FLIR technology when it's cooler. Now, going back to the question of you can still find a deceased body after it's deceased, that is true, because it's not like when someone is deceased that they immediately cool down to, regular ambient temperature. With an adult-sized body, you're looking at probably about 12 hours. With children, they're going to lose body heat much, much faster. With children who are underfed and don't have very much on their frames at all, you're going to lose body heat even faster than that. So that is one of the challenges that comes with FLIR technology. But if we look at it in terms of the helicopters and the drones were there in under 2 hours. Now, I can't remember from if it was a helicopter or a drone that was there first, but the helicopter they redirected from that search for the kayak guy. Yeah. I will be doing a live stream where I look at all this technology, going through how all this works, because I think it's important for us to understand this so we can understand why people are so confident the children were not in the woods. Lansdowne Lake was checked with sonar and it was checked with divers. And then when Please Bring Me Home came back in October, I think it was October, they used what is called an aqua eye, which is another form of sonar, but it's a handheld one where you use it from a bank. So Lansdowne Lake has been checked many, many ways with multiple technologies. Yeah, BTTV, this is the first time that I'm actually using the paid version of StreamYard. So I'm a bit nervous about trying to find FLIR, but I will do that in another video. I'm a bit nervous about trying to find that while I'm live and then losing it. Do the Martells have a family plot? One of the nearby cemeteries has a lot of Martells in it. The family has been there for many, many generations. So, yes, they don't have a plot, but there are a lot of them. Now I've gone totally off track talking about the Fleur and stuff. But when you see, I will do this video where I talk about the Fleur technology and the augmented reality, which if you've watched my Gus live stream where I spoke about that, that's like, you know, it shows there's no way the children were in the immediate vicinity. No, Fleur cannot see through dirt. They did use ground penetrating radar, and they also used, and I'm drawing a blank, even though LiDAR. They have drones that are LiDAR enabled in terms of technology, which means now I showed you some maps a while back that were LiDAR, but those maps were from quite a distance. They were ones that were, they're the public ones that are, you know, from quite a height, showing the different anomalies and stuff. But they actually brought in drones that have LiDAR, meaning they flew the drones over the area and the LiDAR will show where there's anomalies in the soil and stuff like that, because what the LiDAR does is it uses a laser, and the laser measures the distance from the drone or the helicopter to the ground and back. It measures the time, and it uses that to map the terrain. So you get a map where all the trees are gone, all the buildings and stuff are gone, and all you see is the ground, the topography. So you can see where mine shafts are. You can see where old wells are. And if you were doing it from a drone like they were doing, like, you know, closer to the ground, then they will see where there are mounds that have been put in there or dips in the ground. So much technology that would have gone through the area to basically really thoroughly cover it. And I do need to get back and put that into a video for everyone to explain it, because I know I'm being a bit vague with some of my explanations here. I have a wealth of information on all this. BTTV, myself, Ara, several other people, we went down this rabbit hole so damn deep when Kylie went missing, or when we were looking at Kylie's case, that I have so much saved that I can share with regards to this, with regards to the sort of technology that helicopters use, with the LiDAR, the FLIR technology, the augmented reality. Yeah. Some twit commenting, telling me that, oh, mad technology? No, you're funny. They don't use that. Yes, they do. And if you look it up, magnetic anomaly detectors, it's a real thing. It is, sometimes they refer to it as a fish. Basically, if you are using it from a boat, it is a thing that looks a bit like a missile almost, and it is dragged through the water from a boat, and it detects magnetic anomalies like a vehicle under the water. They also have MAD that they can put on helicopters, and it's this thing, you see it protruding extra long from the back of a helicopter. That is also a MAD, magnetic anomaly detector, that they can basically fly over a real thing, like whether it's water or the ground. Sorry, I just had to laugh at this person coming back at me and saying MAD isn't a real thing. And they're like, well, no, they didn't use MAD to detect submarines. They used sonar. No, so I need to explain that a little bit more. MAD technology is different from sonar. In terms of the usage during World War II for detecting submarines, yes, boats use sonar and can detect submarines. But in terms of knowing you're over the top of it, in terms of planes, that's when the magnetic anomaly detectors come in. Especially as technology has improved and it becomes possible for submarines to scramble signals so that they cannot be pinpointed via sonar. And that's where MAD comes in, because you cannot scramble the existence of metal, because that's what magnetic anomaly detectors do. They look for metal. That's where the magnetic part of it comes in. It's still used now. The technology is major technology in terms of both Air Force and Marine. Prox fuses, I'm not sure. I haven't looked into that too much. My understanding of MAD technology is more about how it is used in search and rescue. I just know the origins in terms of it has military applications. In various areas in California, a lot of the agencies, the law enforcement agencies, have helicopters that are decommissioned military helicopters. And they have these technologies on board because they are decommissioned. When you look at Air Force, the super duper helicopters, they have things like the MAD technology on board. And it is real. So to the tool who came in, and I suspect they were probably a troll, I don't know. Apparently they got deeply offended by me talking about Kylie Rodney's case. Yes, thank you, that's what I was. The Civil Air Patrol in the US, a lot of their birds are decommissioned military helicopters and things, and fixed wing planes. And they came in with the search for Kylie Rodney as well. So it wasn't just a boat on that reservoir with MAD technology. It was also Civil Air Patrol coming in. I know it doesn't apply here for Lily and Jack, but it is something that is also another thing that is used in searching. The level of technology, some of it that I would imagine even we, with our countless hours of research, haven't discovered, because there's some technologies obviously they're not going to make available to the public. But from cases that I've researched, the level of technology when it comes to these sorts of searches, is that who it was that was making the comments about the MAD and saying that, you know, I'm a fool basically for thinking that there's such a thing as magnetic anomaly detectors? Which, you know, you make yourself look like a bit of a tool when you say there isn't such a thing as a technology that has existed for 80 years. You got to wonder about some people. Anyway, I have once again gone right off topic, and I have a little dog who's scrabbling against my leg, telling me that he needs my attention. So we're heading up to 2 hours. Apparently Mouse says, that's it, you're done. Yeah, it's 80 years they've been using magnetic anomaly detectors. Sure, they were probably really big and clunky 80 years ago. But now they are the sort of thing that if you've got a couple of $1,000, you can go out and get your own. At the time that Kylie was missing, Adventures with Purpose were basically, that was going to be their next purchase. It's available technology that anyone who's doing searching can access if they've got a couple of $1,000. It's a real thing. Anyway, apparently Mouse is saying this is where we have to finish. And as you know, Mouse is in control. Mouse runs my channel. Even though he can't have membership because he's too young, he runs my channel. He's the one who tells me what time I have to get up of a morning. He's the reason I'm a little bit less organised today, because last night I was still trying to do some organising for today's live stream, and he decided it was bedtime and there was no arguing. So I guess this is where we have to finish. So before we finish, please, if you haven't hit the like button, please do so. That definitely helps my channel a lot. Also, please share this live stream. For anyone who's listening and would like a link for Ara's channel, I will come back and I will put that link in the description for this after I end the live stream. After I take Mouse outside, obviously. But I will put the link for Ara's channel at the top of my description. And also, what else do I need to say? If you're someone on replay, please leave a comment. I probably should have said that as well. Thanks for coming, everyone. I appreciate every single person who's been here. Please do check out Ara's channel. Ara is awesome. We love Ara. Thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.